I saw Benkai joined GE, and I think that's a insanely good pickup for GE. Like, I really do. I think Benkai has a lot to offer still from like my talks with him, and I am curious if he's going to like install a system similar to what Paper X ran, or if he's gonna play like a totally different style. Because I always give him a lot of credit early on for their play style, and I think he fostered a really good environment for a team that can play that style. I don't know. I loved that pickup though. I thought that was a really good pickup by GE.
I do like the pickup. However, Moniette, I believe is how you pronounce his.
Yeah.
Moniette or Moniette. He
Paper
was
X.
like their best player. Okay, and now he's on PRX. So if I had to pick a winner between this so-called trade between the two, it is PRX. PRX looks extremely scary now. Like, insanely scary. Like, I almost have to feel like they're maybe even the favorite now going into next year.
Yeah. No.
You know, like
Moniette's a really good player. He
was their best player. He was GE's best player throughout the season.
I'm pretty sure he played controller like all season though. But before that he was a duelist main, apparently. So like, but it's very interesting because I actually thought his like slow play on controller was really, really good. Like he was really good in clutches whenever I would watch him. And just his game sense was very high. I want to know like what they end up putting him on this Paper X team, because they have so much flexibility. Right, like obviously something is going to be in some nutty duelist role. Forsaken can literally play everything, but I would imagine they're going to have him play like Sentinel more. Mind Freak is their controller. They could run double controller with like Mind Freak and Meunier, but that's not really like the Paper X style, you know? Like, so it makes me believe that like they're not going to do that. They're not going to do the Mind Freak Meunier like double controller comps, because that's the same thing to do. Like what they're gonna do is run him like on Neon. Like that's the Paper X thing.
I love that PRX just keeps signing incredible duelists and then having them play other stuff. And it seems to work out really well for
Actually,
them.
I did see that Benkai would be the second IGL. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, like the double controller it's not their style. I mean, I guess we'll see, but if they didn't run it at Champions, and throughout the season, which when it was really great, you probably can't see it happening next year. I mean, I guess we'll have to see. It doesn't seem like Harbor or Viber have really taken too much of a hit, so theoretically, double controller should still be pretty baller. I mean, I think GE is still gonna have a really tough time. I think. In the region, I think PRX is definitely looking like, through the pickup of Moniette, even though they lost Benkai, I feel like they're an even better team now than last year, and that is difficult to say given how incredible they were at the Champions.
Yeah, it's very hard to say that. I wouldn't go that far yet until we see them play. I think they're gonna have to tinker with a lot, like to figure out these roles. Because I'm trying to think about it right now. Like, they could do a lot. And if they're wrong on, like, their role situation off the bat, it's going to cause a lot of problems within their team. Because, Moniette could be a duelist alongside something. Forsaken, obviously, could be a duelist as well. Or they could just run single duelist. Like, there's a lot of options available to them. And sometimes that kind of stuff can hurt a team. Like if they heavy commit on one of the routes and it's just not working out, and then they pivot and they're way behind, like they can't get like the playbooks necessary to like make deep runs in tournaments because they fucked around for too long. It kind of is what happened honestly to NRG for like the early part of this year.
NRG. I mean, from what FNS was saying, they had a lot more problems than what we were led to believe. Terms of their consistency.
Yeah, what did you hear what he said? I actually didn't hear what he said about that.
I think he was just talking about how the chemistry wasn't right. It seems like they were very inconsistent. They weren't all on the same page. They weren't able to like dominate people as they had previously. All kind of like, I would say kind of I'm sure he's telling the truth, but generalities of why a team falls apart or doesn't function at all. We're not really going to get the nitty gritty in terms of like what was happening. I don't think. I mean, obviously there was probably some tension between him and Chet in terms of maybe how they wanted things to be called.
Yeah, the only thing I saw was just like he said that a lot of different players on the team had different visions of like how they wanted to play. And honestly, whenever that happens, it's so Jover. It's so Jover. Like, unless you pick one and that style wins, if there's like competing philosophies on how to play the game and there's not full buy-in into the one that you're running, you're so fucked. Like your team is literally just phony. Like they'll never feel fully bought into the system unless you win right away, which Energy didn't. So that's why it probably looked like they could never bounce back, because there was probably always doubts about like what comps they're running, if someone should be playing this aggressive or that like passive here, And now we are going to get a whole year where Sam and FNS aren't on a team. So we're getting.
I mean, that is crazy to me. Like when we were speculating, theorizing what was going to happen to NRG about a month ago, before the reports came out about like FNS and Sam and Artis going to be gone, we were thinking, especially myself, that Artis unfortunately did not have a great time on NRG, did not have a great tournament, and talked so much shit about other teams and other players. He had to go. Okay, Artis had to go. All right, so that was kind of an obvious one. But I truly thought, and you thought so too, I believe, that FNS was in that untouchable realm, and that no matter what, he would be continuing with the team. He is such a great leader, and his identity was so part of that roster that he would continue being the leader of the team. And I think with Victor and Crashies being like pretty much best friends, them, pretty much going from team to team together, they were a package deal, that FNS, Victor, and Crashies were going to be the three to stay together. And although Sam and FNS especially had a great relationship, that Sam would probably be the second man out along with Artis. But FNS going as well, and also being the first person to be reported going, even though Sam was right behind him, leads me to believe that I really feel like there was probably some friction between him and Chet in terms of the way that they wanted to approach the game. When he talks about how there's differences to approach the game, obviously all the players on the team have input, but that really is between the IGL and the coach. No? I mean, you obviously have insight here.
From NRG's perspective,
not on the specifics, but when you hear something like there's differences within the team on how to approach the game, does that not give alarm bells specifically between the IGL and the coach?
To an extent, yes. I think their team is just full of like very, I don't want to say like stubborn, but they obviously have like a lot of experience, right? So when they probably feel like they're right in something, they have years and years of like experience in Counter-Strike and Valorant that's kind of supporting that thought in their head. So if they believe that they should play a certain way, it's not like if you're FNS, like you're arguing with some like green player that's just going to listen to everything you say. Like that, you actually have to like earn the respect of these players, and that's really hard to get when it comes to like Victor's, Crashies. I mean, Marv potentially looking at joining the team too. Like these are all that have been around the block. They've been playing forever. So if they disagree with the play style, it's going to be very hard to convince him to come back. And same thing goes for like, the Chet FNS thing, right? Like they're two different people that will inevitably not see eye to eye on every single way to play the game. Like that happened with myself and Stellar in certain occasions on 100 Thieves. Like he even said it in an interview after, right? Like you're going to have those differences, especially when you're a team for as long as Energy was. Like,
it's probably much more exacerbated within NRG though, because Chet and FNS both have extremely like strong personalities. And especially in terms of what they want to see within the game. Because even between you and Stellar is still comparatively newer to the role and to the competitive professional scene at Tier 1, but Chet's been around for a good little while now. And of course, FNS is like an old man, just like us.
Yeah.
So you have if you're going to have a difference of opinion in terms of how they want to approach the game between those two, that seems like that would be more destructive than in a scenario with you and Stellar, where you definitely have a huge edge on the experience factor in a Tier 1 professional setting.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, like, the players are likely going to typically side with the player, right? Like, they're not going to backstab their IGL that's in the server with them, typically.
But Chet is like one of those few exceptions as a coach that definitely commands their respect from their players to probably cause a divide.
Exactly. This is like a very, very rare scenario where, like, the players have achieved great things with the coach and the in-game leader. And, that's probably why there was like a fracture within the team, if I had to speculate. And I think it's interesting now because the options on Flynn's sheet are the ones I'd heard of where like Sadak might go to NRG. But now that report came out where he's staying with Loud. I literally have it on the screen right now, and Havoc will join as their duelist potentially. And that would then put them in a world where if these rumors are correct, they don't have like a true IGL. It'd be like Victor Crashies, Marved, and they're looking at rumors of like Demon 1 Ethan, which was something I speculated last time we did this, I think, because I was like, oh, Ethan is really good boys with these guys. They need a duelist. So it would kind of make sense. If EG were to just like crumble. Like, this is a move that's definitely likely, at very least, based on like the past player connections, I guess. I don't know where
if NRG would be able to get Demon 1 and Ethan, they would be an IGL away from being easily the leading favorite going into next season for Americas. Yeah, in my opinion.
See, that's where, like, I think honestly, and this might be something that Chet might be willing to like give it a go, is not having an IGL with this team, because like
that seems kind of risky. No,
it does seem risky. Like, if I were to, I would never do this with like a young team. But with the way like Energy is structured with like Victor, Crashies, Marved, like Ethan coming in, those are 4 CS players that have played at like the top level of CS for a long time. So they can mid round with like the best of them. They know roles, they know spacing, they know trading, right? You don't really need a super insane voice. You just need someone to make a call at the start of every single round, no matter what. And then the mid-rounders on your team can hopefully pick it up. But I don't know if that's something that can work. I mean, PRX kind of pulled it off. Like, they did like a game plan style team, and they just got really good in the chaos. I think this lineup could pull that off if they, did go that route. I don't know if that's the optimal way, and I don't know if that's what Chet wants to do. But after a team where he probably felt like he didn't have control, he would have full control in a team like that. Like no IGL. He would just be giving them the game plan. Like, that's the opposite side of the coin. So it wouldn't.
Sadhak going to NRG, that would have been great for NRG. Like, if you're NRG right now, after seeing this report, you've got to be kind of frustrated and upset. Maybe Andy Miller is beside himself right now, driving around downtown LA, begging for Sadhak's family's home address, so he can come make sure he can bring them to NRG. You probably don't have any idea what that reference is, by the way.
Andy Miller?
Well, the owner of NRG.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck you're
talking
about. Okay,
no, in the NBA, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban. One summer he was trying to get a free agent, and the free agent, Jordan, He was going to sign with them, but then at the last moment, the team that he was currently on, the Clippers, like his teammates locked him into his house. They came over to his house, locked him in the house, and forced him to re-sign with the Clippers. So then Mark Cuban actually tweeted that he was driving around downtown Dallas, like trying to find his home address so that he could get to DeAndre Jordan's home so he could try to force him to commit to signing to Dallas. So at this point, I feel like that's what NRG has got to do to bring Sadhak over. Because that would be, like, if they were able to get Sadhak and somehow were able to complete a Demon 1 Ethan signing, they would be by far the favorite going into Americas. I still think even without Sadhak, if they were able to land Demon 1 and Ethan, they would be huge favorites. But, like, what you're saying with everyone taking a turn, kind of all, calling together, definitely can work with an experienced team. But how many times can we say a team without a true IGL has won a world championship, whether it's been Counter-Strike or here in Valorant? It feels like the examples are so few that we don't even really have many to pick from. Sure, they could do well, but in terms of winning a world championship and in terms of like being the best team in the world, it still feels like the old school mentality of having a true IGL is still valued really highly. I mean, even still in Counter-Strike, you have the Hooksy memes where, he drops 4 kills and gets like 42 deaths and it's like a 0.3 rating for the series. That's okay. And they're still cool with him and want him as the IGL because of his ability to lead the team. And that's in a game where I think that the fragging is even more important than in Valorant. Or in Valorant, you could have, I think the leniency in terms of not having the fragging ability is even more accessible in Valorant than it is in Counter-Strike. Where it still feels like in CS, it's trending more towards you need 5 firepower fraggers, and if you don't have that, you can't win even with a really experienced IGL.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of styles. This is actually like a very interesting topic that I brought up with Safe. Like I was curious where he thought it was trending. Because there are a lot of teams with like the non-fragging IGL, but then you look at the teams that made the finals at Champions, and you have like Boostio and PRX is like kind of like IGL by committee, but I guess you could say it's Devi, and that is not the case with those two teams. Like, but then you go right below and you go like Loud, and I don't think Sadaka is like some insane fragger. Like I don't.
No.
But the way he conducts his team and the respect he gets from the players is potentially worth more. But I don't know which way it's going to like trend right now. It's very difficult to see like which team or which style is better. I think what we're going to have is a lot like what happened in CS, where there's going to be phases of this game where the skilled IGLs win a lot. Like the eras in CS where like FaZe Clan was winning with like a very stacked roster. But even then that was with like Kerrigan.
Yeah. At times, Kerrigan can go off.
Yeah.
There are definitely at times where Kerrigan carried that FaZe team through tough times.
Yeah. There wasn't many teams, I guess, in CS that didn't have like really good IGLs that stayed on the top for a while. There were like eras of FaZe Clan and shit where they got super close, but they couldn't really finish it. I don't know. It's hard to say, but right now in Valorant, it definitely seems like it's better to stack your team with skill. That's what it seems like to me. So it wouldn't shock me if
you really think so. You don't think? I mean,
it depends.
As much as we give Fnatic credit for being the best team easily throughout the year, and Boaster being obviously an incredible IGL and pure leader of a team, you got to say that his poor performance at Champions probably directly related to them not getting to the finals.
In
terms of the fragging ability, not necessarily the calling. He did not have a great series against either Loud series. He did not play particularly well.
See, and this is something I kind of like saw potentially happening at Champions, and I actually spoke a little bit with Sideshow about it like before the playoffs started. Like the one area that I would be worried about for Fnatic is if they ran into a team that were all willing to fight and brawl, like, because Boaster is such a good supportive IGL that a lot of times when you watch him, he's not really down to like take those opening duels, and he often like kind of masks himself in like the back layers of the team. They're very like strategically set up so that way the opening engagements go to like Alfir or Durka. They use Leo's util really, really well. Same with Chronicles. So they mask it really well so that way he doesn't have to take those fights. But Loud was playing very scrappy, and they were almost like forcing him to take a lot of those fights in that series. But I still don't think he played like so bad that it was his fault. Like, I don't think that at all. I think the entire team didn't really play. Maybe it's because they felt like, things were just going severely wrong. Like, they lost a lot of pistols, if I remember correctly. Like,
I mean, on the flip side, you could always have an Angel situation where he doesn't have a care in the world. He doesn't mind entering all the time. He will run it down on defense as well. He'll TP into spawn if he thinks he has an opportunity. And I wouldn't say that exactly went so well either. So it's definitely like a middle ground in terms of not being too tentative, in terms of like taking the first initiative, the action of not wanting to take those duels because you're afraid of losing, and then being so overconfident or so laissez-faire about like, oh, it's okay, I'll get information, I'll take the first duel, then I get to IGL when I'm dead, no problem. There's definitely a good middle ground, I think, for how that is.
Yeah, I'm curious to see like in the next iteration of Navi if Angel like keeps up this playstyle. Because maybe he was like kind of forced to because they didn't have the right aggression on their team. But if they go into next season with like only bringing artists in for CNED, I think they're going to have the same problems. So,
or worse. Like, look, with all due respect to artists, I love you, man. How a straight up 1-for-1 losing CNED, gaining artists. Yeah, they do have history together. And they have, some chemistry already there. For me, I am not a huge fan of the move. I don't think that Navi are in a good spot. Even though I do think EMEA is kind of fractured right now. A lot of teams are not looking great or really haven't been able to make decisions. It still seems like Fnatic is easily the top team. And then there's everybody else.
Yeah,
and maybe that saves Navi. I don't like Navi in terms of how they're currently constructed, but I don't love anybody else in the region either. So it feels like number 2 is up for grabs between all the teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's like a lot of question marks with EMEA right now. Like, I'm looking at Heretics. Like, I don't think they've made any like huge pickups. I think BBL. I don't know how those players pan out on their team. Like, I actually liked watching Kushner though. That guy was really good.
There was a report today that CNED is trying out for BBL, I believe.
Okay, that would be a huge pickup for them.
That would be great.
That would be a really fucking big pickup for them. But I still don't think they're competing with like the upper echelon of EMEA.
Same.
I don't know what Liquid's gonna do with their lineup. Like, this is like, they could go so many ways. They obviously have a lot like money to make splashes. I think they're the biggest wild card here. Giants bringing Enzo in. That's a pretty good fucking pickup if they do that. Is that what they're doing? Trials. That's a pretty good fucking pickup.
Who's trying out for Giants?
Enzo.
Oh, yes.
I think he is super good. He probably should have been in franchising this last year. I think Cloud is really good. I think Nucky is really good. I think Hoodie's a good player. I think Giants can improve drastically if they play their cards right. I think Foot, they'll probably try to build on what they have. I don't know if they have like what it takes though to be like the best in the EMEA. I think they're good, but I don't know if they're great. I think they'll make playoffs.
But is anybody great? That's kind of the problem with the EMEA.
Yeah.
Like even last year, you had Fnatic, and then it kind of felt like everybody else.
Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to like go through the list right now and see like who could compete.
I mean, the first thought is Liquid should be the number 2. should be. But it doesn't seem to matter what esport Liquid competes in. They will choke no matter what. And they will underperform no matter what. But it definitely feels like Liquid is the team that has the best opportunity to solidify themselves as a number 2. And honestly, it should feel like, I feel like if you're the other EMEA teams, you should look at what happened to Fnatic and Champions, and you should smell blood in the water a little bit to see that, oh, look, yeah, they are beatable. And that we can do this. They don't have to go undefeated throughout the year up until the final event. And that, you know, everyone else on the team should be able to do stuff. I mean, with Soulcast no longer at Liquid, you know, they have an opportunity to bring in a big free agent.
Yeah, I think they're running into the problem of like just not a lot of IGLs in Europe.
Yeah, I think it was the same issue for NRG. I was going to ask you, let's say now that there's no longer Sad Hack, and let's just put aside the aspect of maybe we have a non-IGL team with everyone, you know, divvying up the calls mid-rounding. Like, who does NRG go after for an IGL as well? I feel like if you're a free agent right now and you really want to, oh, you think so?
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of options. Even like going down into challengers, I think there's a lot of pretty fucking good IGLs in NA, like that have come up through like other good IGLs and learned a lot. Like even Stellar, for example, like that is a steal of a pickup right now, in my opinion. Like I think there's a lot of good players available.
I mean, Liquid could go for an American IGL. All teams have one import slot open. Liquid is an American organ. Well, they're a split American European organization, but it wouldn't like surprise me if they were the team to bring over an American out of all the European teams.
I do think that there's a lot of IGLs. Like I'm going through like Stellar, FNS, the ones that I mentioned previously.
So then why FNS to Liquid? Do you feel like FNS and SOM are tied to the hip now? I know that they've already said that they're going to be like doing, you know, they're going to be playing together, or they're going to try to make a team for tier 2 or whatever. But like, if you're FNS, are you not? The IGL role is like one of the most sought after roles of anybody in all of free agency, along with the Star Duelist. Why would you attach yourself to SOM, even though you're best friends, to get signed somewhere?
Honestly, like I think FNS could just be very burnt on playing right now. I think he might not have this stance in a couple months, like after some time off. You gotta remember, this guy literally played the entire, well, so he made a deep run in lock-in. I think he got like top 4, and then so he stayed there for a pretty long time, and then he went into the regular season and they made the playoffs. They then made Tokyo, so he's playing in like the maximum amount of matches, the maximum amount of tournaments, and then they go into champions like literally like what, like a month and a half later, 2 months later, and here he is. He's probably fucking exhausted right now. Like honestly, he's probably really enjoying his time off. He's probably really enjoying streaming right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just wants to take some time off. And this is where I actually think like the new VCT rules, I don't know if you saw this, but they basically made it so like another yay can't happen. So teams can contract out like their 6th player kind of like at any time. So, you know, like he could technically be like scooped up by one of these teams like, you know, midway through the season if he wanted to, right? Like he could play his cards, right? Just enjoy some time off, maybe see if like the content creator thing is something that interests him. If it's not, then he can obviously IGL pretty much any NA team. But the problem with doing that for him is that these teams will lock in their rosters and he will be watching. Yeah. If he waits, it's not like he can just come knocking on their door and they'll replace whoever is their IGL with FNS. Because then they would have to start from, you know, the fucking start. They would have to begin all over again with their practice.
Unless you run more, then all bets are off, and he will fire you in the middle of the season. Don't worry. Your job is not safe, John QT, okay? You have pretty much until the middle of the season to prove that you are the man. Because
No, I
if
think
you're
it's
not,
safe.
you're gonna get deft.
It actually
You are
is a
going
bit
to
rough
get
though,
deft.
because yeah, it's like they wouldn't cut Zekin or Tens. They're not gonna cut the Brazilians. That is kind of rough. I feel like Kaplan and John QT, they're out there pointing fingers at each other. You know, like if it ain't you, it's me kind of thing. Fuck. I have a lot of faith though in Sentinels. I think it was really smart that they kept the core of their team. If everything reported is true and they just stick here with this grouping, I think it's a dream scenario. Like Kaplan's worked with John before. John did a lot of good stuff on M80 this past year. He got coached under Happy, who is a great CS IGL. So he probably learned a lot in this last year. So in addition to like the base that Sentinels had from last year, they're getting John, who's basically like implanting in like everything that M80 did into this team. And I think that's such a good sign. Also, it allows Pancata to go back to smokes. So God bless.
I think that is a huge aspect here. I'm not sure if this has been reported yet, but Sassy and Pancata have what it feels like they're going to it's not entirely official, but they have re-signed with the team. They are going to stay. So they are running it back fully. It is the same exact team with Zelsis there as the hype man, or in case anything does happen. And now John QT as the leader. And I think that, you know, with just the change of the IGL, and Kaplan getting to be the full head coach at the start of the season rather than having to come in midway through, I actually have a lot of faith in Sentinels too. I know I've been personally pretty hard on Tens on the show when we've been talking about him, but I do feel like John QT is a great leader. He has the fragging power, and they have removed a lot of the distractions. I think that Psycho, for all the good that he did through XZ and kind of proving himself, I do not feel like he fit on to Sentinels. I don't think his leadership style was good for that team either. So I really do feel like coming into this season, with John QT and Kaplan together, that is a much stronger core for Sentinels. I still think that Tens is going to have to prove himself and have like a kind of a bounce back year to really like show that he can be the quote unquote leader of the team, even though that like Saucy might be, you know, traditionally what it is for them. But I really do feel like Sentinels on paper, even with the change and running it back, are at the top of the league in terms of expectations.
Yeah, I think another team up there, if Leviathan gets Osbos signed, I think that would be a fucking awesome pickup for Leviathan. They bring in like a new head coach, so like they're not doing, you know, the same shit every game that owner was giving them. They're doing different shit now. They have King IGLing. They have Nodsworth. They have Shy. Mizzino did look weak at times, but bro, like Osbos and King together, that team would be insane. Like, I would have so much faith in Leviathan if Osbos joined them. I would have so much faith in that team. I don't know much about their head coach. That would probably be another big thing to look out for. But that would be an amazing change for that team. Holy fuck. And then Cloud9's team, which is like kind of like fully all but confirmed. I think like that will be interesting. I don't know if that will play out very well. I don't think it's the budget team. I think
it. I mean, it is going to be the budget team comparatively.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's risky what they're doing because like they got rid of a lot of their experience, and I don't know. Like Vanity hasn't played in like the VCT Americas stage yet. I know Vanity has a lot of experience, but he'll still be like new to like that whole experience, as well as like Oxy. So like they're going through the whole thing all over again, except without MCE.
I do not like it. Like they get rid of MCE, who's a great coach, because Vanity doesn't want him there.
I think there's a lot more at play, from what I've heard.
I mean,
but I don't know. I don't know like what exactly why. But I think Vanity is a really good IGL, and I watched what he was calling for like Shopify, and I really liked a lot of his thought process in the way he called. I know it was just a very short stint that he had with Shopify, but I watched those games closely. I think Vanity's definitely still got it to play at like the pro level.
I mean, of course, I do too, and I love Vanity. You know, as a person, I've talked to him quite often. I don't think he had a great year. Personally, even with on Shopify and at the beginning of C9, I don't think things exactly went great for him. Not necessarily his fault either, but I'm just, and I don't know the backstory with MCE, but I am very skeptical of bringing in, you know, kind of the old players back into the squad and then getting rid of what it feels like one of the best coaches in North America. Because it seems like from the outside, this is what the new / old players that are coming back in, which includes Vanity, that's what they want. They wanted to bring in the V1, you know, the V1 coaches that they had, you know, experience with before. And those guys are great too. But it feels like MCE did enough to keep his job. Yeah. He feels like he managed a great season, with the exception at the very end with the you know, the Q-Pert / Rooney situation, which not great, of course, which we talked about. It really felt like MCE performed well enough to be able to keep his job into the next season.
I agree. I mean, I think I've said that a lot. Like, I think that was like the craziest removal I think I might have seen. I guess if you don't want to include like all of EG, like that whole thing was fucking bizarre. But I think MCE losing his position is quite tragic given how he had that team playing, and like the expectations at the start of the season compared with where reality put us at the end of the season. Like that was like one of the biggest leaps that I think I've had to make mentally, like being a believer in that Cloud9 team based on like what people were saying about them like at the start. But you quickly saw like what he was doing with the game plans and how buttoned up that team was. Like they weren't taking huge risks, and they just played really well off of each other. So I'm shocked that happened. I think the other like key winner right now in Americas has to be 100 Thieves. Like picking up Boostio, well, potentially, likely. And then they're like flirting with picking up like what, like EU, BCJ, or COM in like an initiator role. I think that is a huge win for 100 Thieves, where they needed to probably make a roster change to like revitalize the team. I don't think they're necessarily like massive individual upgrades over like Stellar and Derek, but just changing team culture, bringing in new ideas, Boostio playing with Zix. Like this just seems like a home run offseason for 100 Thieves.
So you think the minimal changes for 100 Thieves, but a few key additions, especially in the IGL portion, if they're able to lock down Boostio, and maybe able to pick up COM. If they're able to get Boostio and COM, I definitely feel like yes, you are correct. That would be a huge win.